So this is that same cheesecloth that I just used. But what I did was I wadded it up haphazardly. And I took those sprays that I made these. I did a video the other day about these. It's just printer ink that I hijacked from a cartridge plus water, and I just, when it was wadded up, I sprayed here and there of my 3 colors, and I tucked it near my heat vent to dry. And so now it's all these pretty colors. And what I want to know, I also took a piece of plain white copy paper, and I spritzed it with just plain water, just a little bit on both sides, and stuck that near the heat vent to dry, because I like one of the coolest things about coffee dyed paper or otherwise dyed paper is its texture and feel and sound. This is plain white copy paper right out of the package, and it has a smooth feel to it and a certain sound. But once you add water and let it dry, it gets this more of a cracking sound. It's not nearly as smooth, and it just has a different feel. It's totally different. The only thing is, add water, let it dry. Because you don't always want coffee or dye. You might just want that texture. And so you can get that by spritzing water on regular paper and letting it dry. So since I have this out, what I'm going to do is just use this as one side. And I usually give my stuff a stir, especially the homemade stuff. The chunky stuff tends to settle. Oh look, dog hair. Who'da thunk it? It's one of the reasons we don't use plain paper. Did you see any dog hair on the coffee dyed stuff? No, you didn't see any. Not a one. No. And I just midstream here changed my mind. Instead of using that other piece of copy paper, I'm going to use a white napkin on this. Because of course the whole point of coloring it was to see if it would show through. I will win. I'm trying to get it on this corner. I will win. I have thumbs. I will prevail. I would never presume to compare any of my work to the brilliant and wonderful Jibid Neary. If you've not seen her work, oh, go look at her Curiosity Shop book or her Mermaid Ocean book. Just mind-blowingly wonderful. However, this has a Jibid Neary feel to it, kind of her colors. She likes a lot of texture. Maybe one day I'll grow up and be an art bookmaker. I would never ever call what she does junk journaling, because her books they're exquisite pieces of art. I emailed her way back when I discovered her and said, "You are the Van Gogh of beautiful books." Like, unfortunately, she's probably not going to get the recognition. In our world, she has it. She's a rock star in the bookmaking, art book, junk journaling world. But, like, I see years from now when somebody discovers that book of the Curiosity Shop book that she made, or her mermaid journals or the like, that they are going to be selling at Christie's for multi-millions of dollars, because she only makes one, they're one of a kind, and they are out of this world. So if you've not yet been exposed, I highly J-I-B as in boy, I-D as in dog, Jibbid, N-E-A-R-Y, Jibbid. Look her up. Amazing. Takes this craft to a whole new level of art. She does. Okay, I was going to use another piece of copy paper. I thought about the tissue. And since I can't make up my mind, I will do what I always do. I will do both. Because that's how I roll. So on one half, I'm going to do tissue paper. On the other half, I'm going to do napkin. Not a huge difference, but different nonetheless. And I want to know which will work better and why. Which I like better and why. So this has a texture and imprint on that I don't want, so I'm just going to tear that off. See, it has this pattern around the edges, and I'd rather it not. So what I'm going to do is fold it for ease of cutting into a manageable piece. It's still jacked. All right. We'll try again. Now let's see. There. Nice, fairly clean edge. Of course, my Mod Podge is probably long since dried. Because I'm screwing around with this stuff. Oh, I don't think I put any on the top, so why didn't someone remind me? And again, I'm trying to avoid that pattern, so I'm avoiding that pattern. Putting it in the middle. Oh, you can see it through. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so I'm back to the good Mod Podge, and I'm just going to put my top coat on. If you're Pokey Joe slow, like I am with this stuff, you want to make sure to lift it off your workspace every now and again, because if you don't, you might end up gluing it to the mat, and who needs that? That's just all kinds of extra aggravation we just don't need in the craft room. So every now and again, lift it up if you need to, because now I have Mod Podge everywhere. Give a quick cleanup, and then, as you were, do what you were doing. Get back to it. Using the good stuff because it's the top layer. I love that you can see that colored mesh through there. You can see the texture through it. You can see the colors. That is beautiful. Now, because this was dyed with that ink from the printer, I wonder if that will bleed or fade or transfer. I shouldn't say fade. Bleed is, I guess, the best word. Because if you print on a piece of paper, I just have a regular printer. I do not have a laser printer. If you just print on regular paper with your regular printer, and then get it wet, those colors bleed. So they're not waterproof. They're not permanent. So I wonder, it doesn't look like this is bleeding though, but you know, it's early. Who knows? It might bleed. And if it does, that'll be even more cool. Like sort of a tie-dye effect. But ooh, I like this. I like this. So far, this one's my favorite. So you can see I've got this big bunch of loose stuff because there's nothing wet underneath it, and it's causing this big pocket. And that's a problem. You see what's happening here? Because I didn't have any, it was dry. Now I've got this gaping hole. And, you know, I could leave it and just pretend it's part of the design, you know, artist choice. I could certainly do that. Because because it is kind of cool. You could take a Stabilo pen and go around it and make it look three-dimensional, like a hole in the universe. That might be really cool. But because I'm doing pages and because I did not plan it, I might do it another time and plan it, but I'm gonna try to fix it. So I have this handy dandy I'm tearing it so that it has frayed edges. Tearing it. And I tried to get it in the shape the best I could. There. Wet it so we don't have this problem again. And I'm gonna stick it down there. Oh look, more problems. Ugh. But now we know, if we're doing this particular style, it's important to get the under layer wet with glue or Mod Podge so that it stays put. Learning as we go. Now I don't like those wads of wet paper. I'd rather have nothing there than just a wad of wrecked tissue. So I'm just gonna take it off. Now I got a couple spots that I'm just gonna leave, and I'll try the bit with the Stabilo pencil when they're all dry. When I do stuff like this, and I enjoy the bejesus out of it so much, I always feel like, oh, I could do this all day. Oh, let's do 10 more. I've got a whole stack. I'm gonna do the rest off camera, because you get the process. I have a base. I'm gonna put some stuff in between and put a napkin or tissue or paper on top of it and Mod Podge like crazy. The process is going to be exactly the same whether I'm putting down these little grassy bits, which is probably going to take some time, or this fringy stuff, which will probably take almost as much time. So I'm just going to keep going with my projects here, and I will show you once they're dry what we end up with. Last one. This one's a little different, so I thought I'd bring it in. I used up all my homemade Mod Podge, so I switched to glue stick for some of the... I ran out about my last one just before my last one, so I only had to use my good glue stick on one of them. Otherwise, I have continued as I was before, using the homemade Mod Podge for the first layer and the second layer, and then using the good Mod Podge for the top. But this last one that I'm going to do is using this cotton that came inside Tylenol maybe, or something like that, I don't know, from one of a medicine bottle. And there's quite a bit of it, so I pulled some of it apart, and in order to get it to stick down, I think it's going to have to be pretty skinny. So what I'm doing is just pulling this apart, thinning it, spreading it out so that there aren't big gobs of it. And I think for this I'm going to have to use the Mod Podge, because I don't think the glue stick will do it justice. So that's what I'm doing. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. I should have did the cotton before my hands were full of garbage. I should have did, wasn't thinking. I'm using just a plain piece of copy paper this is one that I spritzed with water and let dry by the heater vent. And I'm just gonna put some Mod Podge down a good bit, kind of juicy. And then I'm gonna put my little cotton thing in it. and we'll see. This might be just an oogie mess. I've decided not to do this plastic, A, because I don't think the glues will hold it unless I want to get out the Fabri-Tac, and who wants that? And B, I'm down to my last pair of base and top, and I don't want to do anymore. I've been doing this all morning, and I've enjoyed every moment of it, but it's time for brunch and some coffee, and I want to be done. So I'm not going to do this plasticky. Maybe I'll try it another time. If I do, of course, I will give you an update on that. But I am going to use it to tamp this cotton down into that wet Mod Podge. And I will do another puddle of Mod Podge. I have no idea what this cotton is going to do. Is it going to be like cotton candy when it gets wet? Will it just disintegrate down into nothing? I have no idea. Not done any of this before, so we'll just have to see how it goes. Again, just spreading it, pulling it apart so I can get a nice thin layer of it on the paper. You can feel wads of it in there, so, and then put it in the wet Mod Podge. Using this as a sort of as a rubber glove, so I don't have to get my brush in there, and I don't have to get my fingers in there. I've had enough with the stuff on my fingers. I feel like I'm making a Christmas craft in kindergarten, making Santa's beard out of cotton. Very reminiscent of a Santa beard craft. I should have thinned this out before I put my glue on. Whoa, Nelly. So I have these drying all over the place. And while they're drying, I have rotated them a little bit because they're wet and they're kind of molding, you know, they kind of fold over. I don't have a flat surface in this room to lay them all out on. And I should have, but did not take them out to the kitchen table and let them dry flat. I just stuck them wherever I could stick them in here. And anyway, went around and rotated them in order that they don't dry with a permanent bend in them. I don't know if it'll make any difference or not. Seemed like a good idea. So that's what I did. You know, and that's what most of this is. Oh, it seems like a good idea. And quite often, it is. But once in a while, it doesn't work out like you thought it would. So, move on. All's well. There's a big wad, and I got an empty space. So I'm trying to move it from the big wad spot to the empty space spot. Well, it's not disintegrating like cotton candy. That's good. That's good. Obviously, this one will not be a journaling page. Oh, what a hellish nightmare that would be. That's all right. It's all good. So So let's see. Gosh, I just really don't want to stick my brush in here, but I'm gonna. Getting pretty juicy, getting it pretty wet, because there's a lot of cotton on here. The wetness kind of tames that down a little bit. Wonder if you use different kinds of material, different textures, and kind of like the cheesecloth, maybe a super thin muslin, maybe. Oh. So this one's going to be a bit of a mishmash because I only have pieces and parts to work with now. Now, I've got this piece, and I've got this piece wet. But if I do that, my dragonflies and my postage things are sideways, and that makes my brain go insane. So I want it either at the top or the bottom so that it reads right in the journal. More work? Yep, but it lets my brain chill. Anytime my brain can chill, I'm all for it. So there, now we can put it so that when this is in a book, folded, whatever, these dragonflies and postage marks are going to be oriented properly. Not sideways, not upside down. Properly, according to my brain. Now this one, same thing. I could do it this way, but then it would be sideways, and the girl just can't. So all I'm going to do is cut this in half. And now it'll read right. This one's sideways anyway, so who cares? But, well, let me see. Maybe I didn't have to do that. Will this be big enough? No, of course it won't. Why would it be? But there's no rhyme or reason for this one. So if I cut part of it off, this one doesn't have to be upside right or anything because there's nothing to read. These dollar cutting mats from the dollar and a quarter tree. That makes me laugh. Speaking of dollar and quarter tree, a couple months ago now, there was a thing on YouTube. There was a Dollar Tree and it was open, but the doors were locked. It was in the middle of the day, and shoppers were going there to get their purchases, and the lights were on. It was the middle of the shopping day, but the doors were locked. There's a big sign on it that said, all of our employees quit. We have to restaff. We'll get back to you. I thought that was fantastic. That all the employees who were sick of being paid pennies and treated like disposable garbage, and they were given, one of the girls, like 6 hours a week. That won't even pay for gas to get there. Ugh. Corporate and employers just make me nuts. So, bully for those employees that said enough is enough is enough. If we all quit right now, they're gonna have to close. And they did. And I just think that's fantastic. Alrighty. Well, that is that. I'm going to let them dry. And when all is said and done and they're dried, I will come back and show you how everything turned out.